First item on the agenda, apologies for absence. I think we've received them from the Oakses. I've just heard we've discussed already, they're not very well. So do we accept their apologies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. We've not had an apology for Councillor Hutton then,
No, not,
who's not here tonight.
not unless he sent it after 5 and I haven't seen it yet.
Right.
Declarations of interest. To receive and consider any declarations of interest from members and officers under Section 750 of the Local Government Act 2000, Standing Order 35. This requirement applies only in respect of matters which are to be considered by the committee at this meeting. To declare any disposable pecuniary interests. No one? No. To declare any other interests. No. Then with your agreement, I think we'll do the minutes of the previous meeting and then go on to the representations from Mr. Scotney just before we talk about Bassett Place Light. Do you have an objection to that? No. Okay, to approve the minutes of the previous meeting held on 26 September 2017.
Roy has made one amendment already.
Right.
So you just need to initial that one.
Do we approve them? Can I have a proposal, please?
I'll propose them.
Second one?
I'll second.
They're approved. Thank you. Representations from interested parties. A period of no longer than 10 minutes will be allocated for members of the public to address the meeting about items on this agenda. And Mr. Rowley Scotney, if I can introduce you to talk about the light at Bassett Place.
Yes, that's all right. Is it my turn now? Well, good evening to you all. For those who haven't met me, I'm Rowley Scotney. I've lived in Bassett Place for 51 and a half years. I have sent 4 letters via Annika. That references light in Bassett Place. Not quite sure this was my first attendance at the council meeting, but I would like to point out that that light in its position. Are you all familiar with Bassett Place?
Yeah.
It's right on the corner, so it shines along both legs. It is of value to 14 residences. And 2 of the residences, the centre 2 houses on the front row, both owned by, at this present time, both owned by ladies. Tonight they'll be putting their bins out. If they don't take them along the back lane, they will take them through the living room. That's the nature of the beast, that's the way it is. So this light has been there all the while I've been in Oundle, it's always been there. Almost recognised it as belonging to, I would say, Oundle Urban District Council in the first instance. Since then, there has been no, they've always repaired it, replaced it, as it says in the letter. It does a sterling job for all the residents, not just for me, but it's handy for people, tradespeople, visitors, even council representatives at election times. It's there for the good of the people. It's never been a problem until it stopped working, and then it's been suggested that nobody owns it. I would suggest that yourselves having replaced it, or when I say yourselves I mean someone from the council has replaced it twice in those 50 years. It retains its original crossbar. There is a control box between that and the live wires just above it, which has a security lock on it. I'm not aware of whether there'd be anything on that box suggesting who put it there or who owned it, but it is now not working. And it's caused quite a distress for the area, really.
Can I just ask, is the road adopted?
The road is not adopted, no.
That might be the problem.
But this land, as I understand it, is almost on the main street anyway, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's almost on the main.
Number 9?
No, it's on the main street.
The light.
lamp, or the light.
No, it's about 35 yards off the main street.
Yeah,
I mean, it's all right.
it's up on a corner,
Yeah.
It's up on the, if you got
sort
the,
of,
that's it, yes. As the lane comes up there and runs that way, it's right on this corner.
in the corner.
I've never been in there in the dark, so.
No. In fact, it's very useful to have, because
Yeah, yeah.
turning
Yeah.
cars around in that limited
That's
space is...
Hank, do we know if the
Tricky,
council,
it's the best
sorry, did Thratstone be looking after it or anybody else? Do we know how it's been repaired in the past?
No, well, Rowley and I, as per the emails I sent you, met Stephen Matthews, didn't we, from the County Council 2 summers ago,
Yes.
to establish ownership, and they concluded that it wasn't theirs, which is why it wasn't updated in the street lighting changes, and that it wasn't East Northants Council, because we checked with them. So somewhere along the line it's fallen out of the system. So it's now whether we take it on as an unmetered supply and add it to that, like we do for the rec lights, like we do for Danfords Close, there's a light, and then accept the bill to have it repaired. I suspect it will need upgrading because
It looks like it. It looks ancient.
I don't know why it's not working. As I say, all I can say, in the past, all that's happened is one of the residents has phoned the council and the light's been fixed. And that would...
Do you know
I
when
would
that
then-
last was done?
No, I think you've had a stroke of luck really. When we
It's
first moved
lasted
up there,
lots
they
of
came up twice a year to alter the time clock for the summertime. Then they upgraded it to one and left the time clock, and then of course they put the photoelectric cell on where it operates by the daylight level, and thankfully it's gone for years. And I would...
So when was the last work done on the lights?
It's,
I mean, it's
Yeah.
more than 10 years ago. Or?
Yes, because I've been retired 10 years now.
Yeah.
It's I haven't. No, it's. I can tell you in the past, to give you an idea, Deborah Rover, Collins Street, Barbara Ding, Diana Lee, Eileen Gunn.
I'm going back.
That's it. The council offices have moved around to such a degree that I suggest that in the moves,
Paperwork has got
the
lost.
paperwork has got lost. The light stayed there. We've got a couple of pets. So maybe, I don't know, this is only supposition, maybe when Elmdale was electrified, the electricity board stuck it on then and the council took it on. I don't know, but all I can say is that Ruth says on her letter that you just phone them up and it's fixed. So Joe Block Public, being what Joe Public is, if it works, that's it.
Who is responsible for the main lighting around Annika? Is it
It's
MCC
Barnsley.
or East Northants?
Bradley Beatty, but they don't accept this light. We've already asked them.
But no, but who gives Belford Beta the instructions?
We do.
Oh, it is
Or any
Elmdale
member of the
Council.
public can.
But it's the county.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
county
that's what I'm
council.
saying,
They're,
it's
They-
the county
they're
council.
agents of the county.
Yeah.
Why don't they accept this line? Because it's not an adopted road.
Yeah, it's not part of the highway plans. If you look on
Yeah.
their maps for any town, it will show you all the highway lights they're responsible for. This is
My
not one
guess
of
is
those.
that they would say that it's owned by the residents.
Yes.
That's what that's what
Yeah,
they're suggesting.
that
Yeah.
can only,
Speaking on behalf of
can
the
only be the
residents.
only answer. I mean, I'm on a road that's not adopted, and we have a road fund so that we can pay for things like that when they happen.
Yes, but I'm suggesting that all this was taking place before this adoption clause was brought in. Ruth says in her letter it's been there since 1958. How many
Yeah.
council changes have there been since that period in time? And the mere fact, if you look at the picture, that cross, the horizontal bar, is the old sort of Edwardian, Georgian style. They only changed the Sean Conley Act.
Which is electricity and electricity.
I appreciate that it's not adopted or anything like that, but there is 14 residents, there's 14 lots of council tax.
What are the implications for us if we adopt it? I mean, first of all, financially, and secondly, if we're going to open the Pandora's box and everybody else has got unadopted roads.
Lots of those little
You
roads
adopt
in
a road, you end up having to surface it and everything else. So
Yes.
you could end up with all sorts.
I mean, we do, my road, we have to pay for it being surfaced.
But can we adopt bits of it, like this street light, as opposed to the whole road?
You can adopt a street light without
Yeah.
having to adopt the road,
Yeah.
because we do in Danfords Close and the Wreck.
So we do have something in place where we
We
could
do,
actually
it's
do
called
it.
our own meter
So why don't we
supply.
do it then?
Yeah.
So like the churchyard lights, we
Sure.
have
It's
responsibility
not
for
in the
those.
first-
All this correspondence back in 2015, did nothing come of it then, when it was looked at back in...
No, because the conclusion was, if it went out, it would be down to town council or residents. That's what the county council concluded after those meetings. And sadly, Stephen Matthew has left the county council and I tried to contact him. He left on the 10th of October.
Well, I'm quite happy to adopt it. We just,
Is there any issue with it being on private land?
If there was an issue, so with it being on private land, that's the only one. We successfully got a new water main laid about 2-3 years ago. It says in my letter, no one has ever, for my mind, if it's private land, if it's your garden, they ask you whether they can come in. No one has ever done that. They've done it, or they've told us, we're doing this, if you want your car out, get it out before we start. Not what you would expect tapping on your drive. I mean, we've gone along with it because it's been for our good. The suggestion was made in 15 that we bring the lane up to standard and get the council to adopt it. But the figures just don't add up. The amount of work that one of the residents worked on the council, and he says, well, for the time you get the depth out, you'll need to replace all the gas, the water, because you'll have trouble with the houses because it goes up to the houses. The depth will be past the footings of old properties. That's a real can of worms.
It wouldn't be this council that's adopted it. The council.
Well, you know, it's just not a. We're talking about one street light for the benefit of. We have a thing in place where we leave the bins halfway down the drive there, because they instructed us to leave them all on the front, all on South Road. 11 bins on South Road, 800 kids going to St Prince William, passing them. We had lovely patterns made. It's just...
Have we got any idea of the cost of?
No, I've tried to get the cost from E.ON, who currently look on after our own meter supply, but they haven't come back to me
I would
yet.
suspect it needs replacing, looking at
I
it.
think it
Yeah.
does, yeah.
So it's possible to get a cost for replacing it before we make a decision.
The problem, if it's my feeling, is that if they put the new Balfour Beatty type ones in, they're so bright. I'm not sure that your residents would want so much light.
And they're really tall.
They're very
They're
tall and very,
Yeah.
very bright.
Can it not go back on the post that it fits? Yeah.
Well, it might only be the bulb, mightn't it?
It might only be the bulb, but that's an
I think
unmetered.
that's the next step, personally, is to find out what's wrong with it and what the likely cost is.
That's an unmetered supply, and I'm 75, and if I repair it this time and don't fall off, when I'm gone, I don't want my wife going on. It's, you know,
We understand. I mean, I think really that's the best way to get costs sorted out. because we can't really make a decision on whether we take it over or not until we know
Do we know how much?
exactly the costs that are involved.
So on the cost of repair and the cost of replacing it,
Yeah,
yes, both.
yeah. Well, hopefully we can just repair it.
Yeah.
But if we have to replace it, then we're looking at a lot of money really, aren't we?
Really, isn't it?
We're going to have to dig down and sort of
Amazing.
concrete it all in, and you know what these new posts are like.
I don't see why we shouldn't be able to get something that sticks on that post, but anyway.
Well, I agree with you, I think you're probably
You'll
right.
know because you're in lighting, so you'll have it. Got in the garage.
I've got Tiffany showing me.
You haven't got a spare light up the back of your garage.
I have, yes, but it looked very nice. It wouldn't be waterproof.
It'd have a nice shade on it, and
Whose post is it and what other services are on there? So,
Sorry?
whose post is it and what other services are on there? You don't have any problems with?
It's initially, it supplies electricity to tenant properties
Right,
and also telephone to a good many more.
okay.
So it's a busy post.
So, yeah, I mean,
It's the electricity board that
We certainly don't want to take that lot on.
no.
no way.
done the
No
post.
way.
No. The liabilities there could be enormous if we,
Yeah.
I think we've got to look to repair it if we can.
We have.
Just
Rolly,
repair.
does anyone, whose
Yes.
land does it actually stand on?
Well, nobody seems to
It's on the
know.
road,
No,
I think.
no,
Does
but
anyone
on the
receive,
road.
you know, sometimes you get like a way leave payment from a,
I've asked
Does
all the
anyone get that
residents
payment?
around, no one receives any way leave or literally whatever work goes on in that lane, no one has ever been asked for permission to do it.
right,
As it said in my letter, I tried to get the electric post when they replaced it moved back, as Val will say, it's a narrow drive, it could be moved back 3 foot, but, you know, this is where we're putting it, mate. It's, you know, it's our post, it's our hole, it's going here. All right then,
yeah.
give me your boss's number.
Well, if it's got all those other services on it, I can understand why they would say that, because they would then have to re-cable probably all those other services, because if you move it even 6 inches, you find some of the wires are too short and some are too long.
That's I
So
agree
they,
with
they won't, they'll stick it as near as they can to the original.
Yeah. I agree entirely with you, but I'm just
Yeah.
trying to say that we've had no control over what happens in there.
Yeah. Can we get quotes then for
Repair,
repair and replace?
what, and then revisit it in January?
yes.
Yeah.
But that means the residents are in darkness till January. So the worst bit of the winter, they're in darkness.
Can't do anything about that.
You can't. If it's a
Well, if I
simple
get the
case
cost
of, when they come to look
through.
at repair, if it's a simple case of a bulb, can we somehow give them authorisation up to a certain amount of money to stick a bulb in, so they've got light at least?
So up to 300,
Without liability, without
yes.
prejudice, as it were, can we do something like that?
What would that be, up to £200 or something with that?
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Just
say
stick
a
a-
bulb, but obviously they have
Bulb
to
or
send a
tube
van
or
out.
whatever.
Exactly, they'll have to send,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody
they won't have somebody up a ladder doing it, will they?
Yeah, yeah,
It'll be one of those sort of.
Yeah.
Cherry picker on it.
yeah.
That's it, Jacob,
Yeah.
that's the one I was looking for.
That's the one.
So is 200 enough?
I thought so,
Not
just
for,
for
no,
one visit.
well, if it's a cherry picker got to come
A
out,
cherry
that's-
picker costs
that
£200 a
costs- Yeah,
day.
exactly.
It'd be on the back of one of their vans though, wouldn't it? On the back of one of their lorries.
Well, should we say 300 then?
They wouldn't need to be there for a day, but
No.
they,
No.
Ridiculous, isn't it, to replace
I
the
know.
bulb?
yeah, to replace a bulb, probably 10p.
You know what the problem will be? They'll get up there and decide they'll discover the bulb's not available because it's a old fitting.
Obsolete bulb, needs a new hole.
Just by look, it's probably been there, I don't know, probably 20 years, you know. It's
Replace the holder, that's 10 quid, but that won't fit with the existing wiring, because the wire up there, the piece of wire will be too short for the new
Well, if you
holder.
remember on the previous meeting, we had quotes from E.ON to replace the old Mercury lights.
Yeah,
They were looking at about £400, weren't they, per bulb?
Per bulb?
Well, per light.
Yeah, but they're replacing the whole lamp, weren't they?
Yeah,
Yeah, but this is just replacing a bulb,
okay. So we
so,
can go up to 300 to replace just
well, I
the
think
bulb.
it's 300. What, does anybody else got any view on that?
Yeah. I
Well,
think
do
I
it.
would. got to be
Yeah.
done, you can't leave somebody in.
Yeah.
Up to 300 then,
Yeah.
I'll propose it, we go up to 300, provided that it's, you know, it's sort of without prejudice, we're not going to lie,
We're
We're
not
not
gonna-
accepting,
yeah,
at
No
this point,
liability.
I don't think
we're
we're
not
accepting
accepting
any
ownership or
liability.
liability, but we don't want residents in the dark till January, when we will get the quotes in and we will then see where we are then. But if we can get a bulb repaired in the meantime, if that's all it is, if it turns out to be more than that, it's underground, somewhere where there's a cable being chopped or something.
There is nothing underground, I can assure
It's
you
all
of that.
above ground.
It all comes off
Right.
from the wires above.
It's one of those situations with wires.
Okay,
Okay.
so up to £300.
So it's been proposed, who's going to second it?
I'll second it.
All those in favour? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. I brought this book, and if I might take 2 minutes, might be of interest to you. I've been done a lot of research. I've been trying to find out where the original light came from, obviously.
Yes.
The rates of Bassett cottages in 1936 was £4.9 and 9 each.
Right.
And the Oundle Urban District Council had loans off the Oddfellows, of which I'm a member, of nearly £8,000. But none of those
Did they ever
was for
pay it back?
street lights.
Well, no, I think with the
Can we borrow some
district
more?
council, that means it would have gone to the district council,
Yeah, it would have been, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
because they took everything over.
Yeah, they did.
Yes.
Oundle and Thrapston Rural District Council.
Yeah,
That's ENC, isn't it?
Yeah.
yeah,
These
CNC.
Northants.
Oundle and Thrapston Rural, now
Yes.
that was one of the old pre-1974 councils. That is now part of ENC.
Yeah, that's
along-
what I mean.
Along with Thrapston Urban, Oundle Urban and
Yeah,
the rural,
yeah. Well, that's what I mean there,
Yeah.
they took it all over.
they.
So they can have it, it should be theirs.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
took
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
assets,
yeah.
well, nearly all.
ENC then.
Yeah, that was my point.
So how do we deal with that one?
If it's an expensive bulb.
We can prove it.
Yeah. Take
From
that,
this?
take that book
Yes.
to, take that book to, who would it be, planning? At ENC, which department at ENC?
But it hasn't got that purchase of that fitting in that book, has it?
No, I'm going to look at some others though, just in case.
Yeah.
Well, keep going.
They keep going, if you can show
Find any
them
evidence.
This,
Yeah.
this is one.
Yeah.
This is just one I found. It's all my venture. Oundle Urban District Council and Oundle and Thrapston Rural District Council was 2 lots,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and the society was lending money to those for, well, pumping station and housing loans and waterworks and whatever.
all right, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
well, thank you all for listening to me. I do appreciate it because I didn't seem to get very far, but.
You haven't, you might not have done.
they still might not. You might get your bulb fixed in the
In the
interim.
meantime,
That, we're
That
not
might
after,
last another
we're not
20
after
years.
a,
You'll have-
No.
yeah.
we're not after a big fancy.
No.
We want the light back.
You might get your light on over Christmas and
We all,
January we might decide that we can't adopt it, but we'll see.
yeah, well, as I say, the residents feel as though
Yeah.
by usage, you might not want it, but it's yours.
Yeah.
Anyway, do I leave now?
Would like to, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time.
thank you.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Tony.
Right, next item on the agenda, to agree a quote to paint the QVH front doors. That was initiated by me when I looked at the state of them, when we made this brochure and we did the photography. Also the posts and around the notice boards there is a hell of a mess. So,
To be honest, £485, I think that's ridiculous. I mean, that's so good, such good value for that amount of work.
well, I would normally say we ought to have 3 quotes, but I can't, I think that's quite, I would think it's quite
Is this the
acceptable.
same chap that did the courthouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, his work's good as well, so we know
His
his
work's good and he's very reasonable.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
£500 for that.
Anybody got any objections? Can somebody propose it? Somebody
I'll
second?
propose it.
I'll second it.
All those in favour? I noticed you also got a quote for the, I don't know if you noticed in your pack, for painting the inside too?
No, that was just to you for budgeting.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
Okay,
that didn't go in the pack because
Okay.
it wasn't here till today.
just to me, okay. To receive the final verbal update on Christmas Market 2017, which is the end of the week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the weather forecast looks good. We've got 80 stalls. We've got all our anti-terrorism stuff in place that we've had to have
Yeah.
because of the police and everything have asked for it to be done. We're hiring those metal barriers. They're going to be stored at the side of the Queen Victoria Hall so we can get them out easily, and then they'll be returned there to be collected on Monday. Yeah, we've got 80 stalls coming plus the fair. We've managed to secure, well, you'll see the next item on the agenda, we're hoping to use the recreation ground for traders to park, so that leaves all the car parks free for the public.
Yeah.
We've managed to secure Laxton Junior School car park. The Wharf have said we can use their car park, and we've obviously got the long stay, co-op, drill hall, all those car parks already.
Very good.
So
There was
hopefully-
also mention, I think, of using part of West Street for parking.
Only
for
for traders who
Yeah,
own
traders at that
Victoria
end.
Hall.
Yeah.
And what we'll do is they will have a permit, and for example, if you need to park down that road, that you'll have a permit in your car, so that will
Right.
immediately flag any other cars that shouldn't be there as well.
Right.
Which is something we've had to do.
Okay.
So
But
the,
yeah.
the 80 stalls includes people inside the QVH as well as outside?
Yeah, there's 14 inside the Queen Victoria Hall,
Yeah,
and the rest are all outside.
okay.
If the rectory ground is sodden, because we don't know, I mean, it looks
Then we
as though it's
won't-
going to be
We
dry.
won't be able to use it.
No.
We'll have to park
So-
in a long stay.
If traders only, they can use the back of my factory.
Can't they?
Again, but they'll have to have a permit on them, so I know it's them and not other people.
Yeah. I'm hoping to park at least 20 cars down West Street, because I'm
Yeah.
aware that it's potentially 80 vehicles.
Well, I
Before you get a member
I
of the
can
public
get,
to-
let's see, 10, probably 25, 30 vehicles at the back
Oh,
of
that'd be
my
brilliant,
Can you?
thank you.
As many as that?
Well, yeah,
Mm.
a lot of space.
It'll be even bigger next year.
Yeah, exactly. Well, take over the council offices.
Roy's obviously turning on the lights at 5:30, which is the busiest time, I would say, and the most scary time for me, because everyone comes into town, and so we're going to cordon that bit off like we did last year for Val, to keep the Yorkstone clear, so
Right.
that you don't have hundreds of people congregating. We've managed to secure a PA system so
Good.
we can do a countdown. So we've got a lady who's part of a jazz band who's going to be in the hall playing jazz most of the day, and she's going to come down and sing just before the switch on.
And we've got Father Christmas now, haven't
She's
we?
going to sing just before us, which
Yeah, so we can use a PA system as well.
Right.
And it's not Councillor Hutton, as I understand.
Yes.
No, it's someone from Volunteer Action, which
That's
is
fantastic.
brilliant because they're CRB checked and everything.
Oh, right, okay.
No, that's even better.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Can I just do a reminder that last year I had a bit of a problem. I mean, one thing was we didn't have a PA system, technical problems, but there was a man who had some sort of grown-up dressed singer people.
They're not coming.
Good, because he desperately wanted to turn the lights on.
No, they're quite
And
busy.
it was a bit of a problem because, you know, there was
So
Him-
I'm going to
him
do
doing
battle
his
with this
stuff.
singer over who's switching on then.
so I think she needs to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Oh no,
it's
she
you.
does know.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other thing was there were children at Hanukkah, weren't there, singing. There was a little children's choir by the tree. And the problem I had with the other chap was he wanted his people.
Yeah, well, they were part of his group. That was Telling Tales,
Yeah.
and
But,
they're not coming.
but,
this year.
yeah, but it was that I preferred the children in front of the tree because then from a photographic point of view you've got children. But if that's not happening then it doesn't matter.
What was his reason for not coming this year? Is he couldn't switch the lights on last
No,
year?
he's written a pantomime elsewhere.
All right.
He's busy doing that.
We
We
haven't
did
upset
ask
him.
them because no, they were very good last year.
Well, one thing I will say, the road closed signs, I don't know if you've got that piece of paper to say what the date is, but you can't read it from a car.
No, but every resident down each road's had a letter as well. And
Okay,
it's on
but I
our
mean, why
Facebook.
didn't we just put in big letters, Saturday it's only the 2nd, and then in little letters the time. So at least somebody driving past in a car can see it.
Yeah, and try and make it bigger. I'm limited on what our photocopier does. But
No, it's not that, it's just print it bigger. I can do it for you.
The thing I worry about, and then obviously it happened at the memorial service we had for November, is that people just ignore that and park anyway. They park. I mean, there was 5 or 6 cars, wasn't there, all the way down the. Well, you were there as well.
Yeah.
You know.
Down the street, just right where the parade
Yeah,
was.
I just can't understand the mentality of
but you,
people.
you can't overcome that.
It's absolutely crazy.
Can't overcome it.
No, but it's amazing how ignorant
How
people
selfish
are.
people are, yeah.
Absolutely, couldn't
We
do
had the
it
year
again.
before, one of them wanted to leave. At the time, they were, the band and all the Legion and all the cadets, right down to the scouts and guides and brownies, were all going to march past and receive the salute. And they were all lined up to do that, and this person decided they wanted to go, and they were in a hurry. They revved their engine as loud as the band were playing to disturb it.
It's just pure ignorance.
Yeah. They still had to wait. They couldn't move with all those people on the street. They couldn't go anywhere, but they just revved their engines
just
in
being-
protest.
Perhaps they ought to be shot by the local cadet force. Anyway,
Well, it would have been
moving
a
on.
good idea to put a bullet in
Have
the
we
engine.
finished anything else?
No,
No, thank you, well organised. To agree, I think we already covered this, agree to reuse the recreation ground for traders parking on 2nd December if the weather is dry. We'll all agree that.
yeah, and if not, we're going to use pieces.
We need them, we don't have to formally propose it, do we?
No, because it's just permission, isn't it? It's not mandatory.
As long as they've got a little note saying from you, Annika, we're parking down there because it's too
It's fine, I've made a permit, so can you get that?
To agree a council-wide policy on charity amenity tenants. What exactly is that?
That's come from me.
Yes.
Because I think that we need to look carefully at the tenants we've got who are either charities or they are amenities to the town, and see what we can do about assisting with fair rents for them, and then having the corporate people paying that little bit more so that they bring in the money needed to pay for the places. But provided they're covering cost, then I think we're all right. I think at the moment, having looked at some of them, I haven't looked at them now for a few months, but when I looked a while back now, Chat, for example, were paying about double what they needed to pay. I think the cost of the 2 tiny rooms they've got worked out when we costed everything we'd spent in Courthouse, and their proportion of it was about £600 a year, and they're paying 1,000 plus VAT, so it's 1,200 because they can't recover the VAT. So I would have thought, even if it's 600 plus VAT, and the irony is they then come to us for a grant, which is still outstanding because we need to resolve this matter. They then come to us for a grant for £1,200 so they can then pay their rent to us, which cuts down the amount of money we've got for other grants. If we charge them only what it costs for the room, say £600, possibly with VAT on top, they came to us for 600 plus VAT as a grant. We give them that in a grant. It means we've got more grant money to give out to other people. They get something cheaper, and they're not spending any of their money on putting profit in the council's pocket, as it were. Same goes for Volunteer Action. I worked theirs out, and they were paying quite a bit more. We'd have to go back and look at annual costs, but I think if we could come up with some arrangement where, and it probably needs one of these deeds of variation wherever we've got a deed in here and at Courthouse, but if we could deal with that. I mean, they're a volunteer organisation, they do a fantastic job for the town. They made a loss last year of £1,900, and over £900 of that loss was on the VAT they pay us in rent. They pay us something like £4,810 plus VAT. They, in their books it's 5,500 something or other, 5,700 something or other. So a massive amount of money. I worked out those rooms that they have, those 2 rooms they rent from us, probably cost us something like, I forget exactly what it is, but something like about £3,000. If they were paying us that, it would free up a lot of money. It would have meant last year they didn't run at a loss, they broke even. And the same goes for the preschool, who've got a really punitive rent scheme that goes up every year. It rises fantastically. They struggled to pay it 2 years ago. They've got no hope of paying it this year. Even with VAT exemption, they can't pay it this year. And next year, they really have no hope whatsoever. No matter how many pupils they had in, it just gets so far out of touch, they can't pay it. And I can go on, you know, there's lots more in the same situation.
Can I speak, Mr Chairman?
Yes.
I'd actually totally agree with Councillor Sparks on this. I think that's a very good idea and I think we should adopt it. However, there's one thing I would ask, and I'm not 100% certain on the law, is that as landlords, we can either opt in to charge VAT on rents or opt out. Now, if we opt out, does that mean we then have to stop charging VAT on all our property that we rent out?
Didn't we look at this?
That's the only thing I'm...
to charge it.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, could we opt out and stop charging VAT on... Would we have to opt out of charging VAT on all the rented
Yes, I don't
property?
think we can cherry pick, can we? It's
No,
either all
no,
or
it's-
none.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Number one, you can't cherry pick. Number two, if you're taking Fletton House, we made a decision with the VAT man before we started the Fletton House contract because we wanted to recover all the VAT on the £1.12 million we were going to spend on the
Yeah, I can
place,
understand that.
which is a lot of money. We wanted to recover that, so we came to an agreement, which I think we're stuck with for something ridiculous like 20 years or something.
But is that only Fletton House, or is
No.
That
that...
is
So
only
that's the
Fletton
count.
House,
But
but
I think it reflects on all our...
we've
I
got
think it has
similar
to be,
things in
as
other
I say,
places.
Because
Well,
we
That's
even
the
charge
problem.
it on market stalls,
Yeah.
and a lot of market traders will say
I'm
we're
not
the only
VAT.
council that do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's how
So, I
it's
mean,
been.
is there any way that we could look into that and see if we could stop paying or charging VAT? Because, I mean, it would have to be for the whole, for everybody.
Charities can get VAT exemption because the preschool
Have we
Yes.
sought any professional advice on this?
I mentioned it, we had a tax consultant here last week and I mentioned it to him in passing. He said he'd have to go into it in great depth, but he thought it was unlikely that we could do anything to help, which is a shame, because I agree with you that I've had leases in the past from a council and it's said at the top, we have the option of either charging VAT or not charging VAT, and it's the council's decision that they opt to charge VAT, which, considering a lot of the businesses were small businesses, start-up businesses in that particular street, it seemed very punitive for them. But they wouldn't budge on it, and I think we will be stuck.
Right.
But we can ask this tax man, we can give him all the facts and the figures, and it probably wouldn't take him many hours. It's about £75 an hour, plus VAT
Just to find
to find out.
So we
If we can recover the VAT.
do we need a proposal then to
Can I just
spend
ask one
some
more
money?
question? Sorry.
Yes.
No, is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
Can I ask Annika then to look at maybe the charities that we're talking about, or all the charities that we're talking about, if they can actually get this option of exemption for VAT?
Yeah, because the preschool have done it, haven't
So if
They've
the
got-
preschool can do it, and then I'm pretty certain the chaps and all that, and then that way we're not breaking our rules,
Yeah.
Okay,
but we're giving
Yeah.
You know, we're then charging rents to them, and I agree as well that we should actually reduce the rents on all charitable and amenities.
Seems stupid to charge a lot of rent, which involves people paying more VAT.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
It's
nobody can-
compounding
Yeah.
Exactly.
the problem,
Yes.
massively.
Yeah.
All that
Now,
happens is the
you-
government
you-
gets richer.
But there is a history as to why this situation
I
arose.
can understand that
Yes.
from
Yeah,
what
there's a way of
said,
getting, finding a way
but- Yeah.
of getting people to be able to pay the
So,
rent.
Yeah.
Councillor Bill, am I right in saying that if the whoever is renting the property can get exemption, or Hanneke, you'll know this, if they can get exemption, then we don't have to charge them, is that what we're saying?
Well, that's what the preschool, they have a certificate that
Yes.
shows
Yeah.
that they are VAT exempt. So if Volunteer Action could be helped to
Yeah.
do the same,
Okay,
the
but
scouts,
that
the
works,
guides,
that works for us.
yes,
that means
I think we have to accept that.
But we're
We
still,
don't have to
we're
charge.
We
still
still
sort of-
charge VAT on everything,
Yeah,
but if they've got a certificate that
Yeah.
says they don't pay VAT, we won't
Yeah.
charge them.
And I would like Volunteer Action to go in
And we know that's,
again because
we've had
we were told
advice that's acceptable.
by the previous clerk that we had to pay it.
Yeah, I think that's wrong. If
So-
they're a registered charity,
I
I
think
think
she
they can
was
actually
wrong.
get.
Yeah.
Well, then we ought to
Yeah.
check on we to make sure that's the case.
Which
Yeah,
I
that's what I'm
think
saying,
we
yeah.
probably
I know
should
you've got a-
spend a bit more money on this
Yeah, I think so.
expert. and
Probably a
get
couple
it
of hours of
sorted
his
for once
time.
and not-
Give him the leases to look at, give him the other details,
Yeah,
every
I
bit of
agree.
detail we've got, probably a couple of hours of his time, 150 quid, and he will probably come back and tell us what we can do in each case, and he'll be able to advise them whether they can get VAT exemption,
Yeah,
and you know, and it will do them some good. For
Yeah.
the sake of us spending £150, quite a few charities like Chat, Volunteer Action, the preschool have already got it,
Yeah, yeah.
but you know, and that combined with us just charging what it costs us, if we can have a deed of variation in their lease that says we can vary the amount of the rent to do this without it costing again a great fortune, we can give them a deed of variation. Hopefully they don't have to spend any money on legal in order to receive this deed of variation from us. It's a very cheap, easy way
Well, I think
for us to help a lot of people.
So,
I don't think that's-
do we need a
Helping
proposal?
town.
Do we need a proposal then for,
I'm
we've
very,
got a
Can I
question
just
here.
make a point or do a question? I don't have a problem with the smaller charities being given a break on their rent, particularly if we're funding them anyway through grants. But my recollection from last time we discussed the preschool is that they're not have a
they're not
credible-
charity?
they don't have a credible business case either. They they're not paying their rent this year because they haven't got any money, and we seem to think unless there's been an update, that we didn't seem to think they had a business plan that saw them through next year. So I don't think.
there's been an update. Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay.
They've suddenly got themselves, the people they had last year, I think, were not inclined, the parents basically are their sort of parent-teacher association
Yeah.
guiding body, controlling body. And it would appear that the ones they had last year, a lot of them were not keen on getting involved in the running of it. Now, they've got some now, I believe, Councillor Chesser knows more about this than me, having spoken to Gina this morning. They've got some this morning that are keen to help. One or two of them are quite professional.
Shall I update everybody?
Yes, yeah.
It's a non-profit making, it's a not-for-profit organisation, whereas the others are
Charities, yeah.
not charities in that sense, they are money, they're there for the
The other
money.
preschool.
This was, yes, the preschool. And yes, this year they have managed to get a much better committee together.
Right.
And they do now have a business plan, because I know the person that's done it for them. And it's at the moment, as we speak, being populated by the person who does do their accounts.
Yeah.
So that we will have the figures and the business plan pretty
She
soon.
does 2 mornings a week, so she's quite busy with all their accounts and things, but she will get round to
That's
it.
right. They
And,
have had a big struggle
Yeah.
lately, not being able to pay their staff properly,
Yeah,
etc. So they've
Yeah.
managed to keep going.
yeah.
And I think, suddenly there's a much better
it's a credit to Gina and her team that they have kept that place running
Absolutely.
through all their trials and tribulations, that she's kept it running.
Because
Well, I
it,
think we're all agreed, aren't we, that we will help charities in the way that you
Yes.
I think you've
suggested.
got to do that.
And then we've also got to lay aside some money so our tax experts can find out whether
yeah.
we can vary or accept exceptions to the VAT rules. So can we suggest a figure that we should put to one side for?
Well, I'm sure that if Annika can get the certificates of charitable status from the groups that we're talking about, from all the groups that we're talking about, he'll be able to say yes, 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 yes. They are.
Yes.
They could be tax.
Well, I think that's what we want to.
That's what we want to do.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. If you-
Whether
if
they
she-
are exempt.
Yeah, well,
We need
if-
to
He's not
find
going
out
to he's not going to do
whether-
it for free.
Whether it's worth doing.
Yeah,
it
yes,
first.
yeah. No, what I'm saying is if Anna can get these copies of
Yes.
the certificates of charitable status, he can then say, yes, that charity's, that charity, that charity, that charity.
I think we've got to agree a figure of a few hundred, knowing that we're going to come in well inside that.
I agree.
But then we need to contact this consultant and say, tell us exactly what you need. We'll gather all the documents, so you've got them in one place, because we don't want him to look at it and say, I've only got half the documents,
Yeah.
come back to me with another
Yeah,
bill
yeah,
and I'll...
yeah. I think that's
I'll
important
look
we get
again.
it, so we don't,
Yeah,
so
we
we
need
don't
to
waste
ask
his
him.
time.
So we do
What
want.
would he need?
Do we want a quote for next meeting, or do we going to set aside some money now?
I think we can propose some money, and if he tells us what documents he needs, and we can get those
Yes.
documents from the
Need to
various
know it from
organisations,
them,
if they'll lend us their documents or let us copy their documents, we can then, if we've got an amount agreed, go straight away, get him to look at it and give us his verdict.
Does everybody know what his hourly rate is?
£75 an hour is what
I
he'll
think
quote us.
£300 would be enough, wouldn't it? I would have thought.
I would have thought so. It's about
Yeah.
4 hours,
Okay.
half a day.
So, yeah.
That should be enough, I would think.
So
We send
if we can I have a proposal then?
I propose that.
I'll second it.
All those in favour?
Take a pic.
Thank you. Right.
Can I just ask one question within that? You have got a Scout and Guide Association who are desperately waiting for a lease, who've been waiting since March for a lease.
Right, yeah.
Are you including them in
They're
this?
included in it because I think
Right.
2,954 or whatever it is astronomical for a building on which we've spent nothing, we've done nothing, we're just about to spend 2,900 and something on a porch. We put £500 aside every year and hardly ever spend it, and have done for years and years and years. They fully repair the inside, so in addition to paying us nearly £3,000, they pay everything interior to maintain it, paint it, decorate it, mend everything. And you know, we put nothing into it. I think we should be charging them a lot less. We should look at what it costs us and come up with some realistic figure. I would think at least half of the lease would
So by next meeting, can we
Yeah,
look
because their
at it?
lease runs out at the end of December.
Right.
Well,
And
they-
yes,
Right.
they are protected because of the type of lease they have, it automatically rolls
Well,
on.
rolls over,
But they
yeah.
are worried because they've been trying to negotiate since
I know they
March,
have, yeah. But I've been trying to do this
Yeah,
since March.
I know, I'm just saying
They do
that
know,
that's
because
the
I've
phone
talked to
call,
Sheila.
Yeah.
then I've talked to.
I'm assuming that they're both charities anyway, aren't they?
And I think they'll all agree that, you know, if they're getting a greatly reduced rent, they'll be delighted with that, and they'll be glad that they waited.
How much are we allowed to give away before we have to take it to full council for a vote? What's the limit?
2,000, isn't it, I think, on only one item.
But when you say take away,
Spend.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're giving up revenues, aren't we? We're giving up revenues, which is going to come into the general cost to the town ratepayers, council taxpayers.
which I'm hoping we're going to recoup with the corporate bookings we're taking in on Queen Victoria Hall and here.
I mean, I've got every sympathy for these organisations, but I think if we've got, you know, they're not even commercial rates we're talking about, are we? We're talking about, you know, rates for them to run their organisations. If we just subsidise every person who's not for profit, organisation within our properties, then we're foregoing a load of income which has got to be found from somewhere else. And I don't have a clear picture at the moment about what we're talking about doing.
Well, I think the idea is to actually, because we don't, is actually to get all that information to hand so that we can make a decision next time.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, we don't have to argue the toss every year about what sort of grant we make. Because it'll be regularised.
I have no problem at all with that. I think that's entirely sensible thing to do. And I'm not in principle against reducing the rents. All I'm saying is that we need to make sure we understand how much money it is. I don't think you can just treat it as 5, 6, 7, 8 different separate decisions. It's a decision to reduce the rents for all of the non-for-profit organisations in the town's properties. If that comes to more than £2,000, which it sounds to me like it's going to,
that's why I say it's a policy. Yeah,
it's got to be. It's got to go to full council.
But I'm not talking about subsidising them. What I'm talking about is they would still be in the main paying, and this is where the museum might be the other way round. We have a rent from them which is way smaller than they should be finding. I think we need, through marketing, to try and help promote the museum to get them more income so they can pay us a bit more, because they have a large amount of space and we do lose money on the museum. We might shortly be taking on a library that might cost us an absolute fortune. Now, we've got, you see, there's so much disparity here in the town, because we're charging that huge amount to the preschool and to the Scouts and Guides, and then, in the same breath, it's a peppercorn rent for the sports grounds down Occupation Road, and again at the same time, we're talking about maybe we take on the library, we might be chucking 100,000 a year in there, in the worst possible scenario. We might be paying out 100,000 a year to have a library in the town, because the people say they'd like one.
Well, I think that's clear yet, is it?
No.
We don't know what the people think yet.
But well, from the small survey we've had back so far, it's looking, the majority of them.
They weren't so sure about it when they were asked if they wanted to pay any money towards it, were they?
No. No.
Can I just add a bit to the background? These original rents, hang on, were pretty much guesswork, and that's the point. What Roy's trying to do now, he's worked out the price per square foot or whatever. Is trying to actually bring them all into line.
Which you never done before last year.
I can understand that, but you're not going to do it around the table tonight, are you? You need to come back with a proper proposal which has got all the detail in it in terms of what you're proposing for each individual organisation.
Well, we can do that. Yeah, we can come round the table, because in the pack tonight we've got all the figures for all the organisations.
We haven't got the costs of the rooms. And
we need those.
And do we want to apply the same rules for everybody? I think that's what you're saying, isn't it? Yeah.
I think we've got to have a policy which means that we do treat them all similarly. But I mean, I know for a fact the preschool, the ones in this building, the preschool and volunteer action, a particular councillor at the time, who will remain nameless, and the clerk at the time, their attitude was, let's charge him as much as we can get away with, maximum commercial rent. That, I don't think, is the way we should be going with either of those organisations.
I think I agree with you, Roy. I agree with Malcolm and Val, and actually Councillor Hutton. I think we have to look at all the rents, all the people, look at the comparison, look at what we can save them, especially obviously the VAT. If they can all be deregistered with VAT because they've got exemptions, that's going to save them a lot of money in the first instance. That's not going to affect our line anyway, because we just pay the VAT straight to the government, so that's not going to make any difference to us. And then look at what if we can reduce the rents to all of them. But I think, as I say, I think we're all right. We've all got to look at all of them and see where we're coming from there.
I think the other thing we've got to take into account is the grants we're giving them too. If we're giving them one hand and taking on the other with the other, then we should be aware of
That's
that.
absolutely lunacy. And we were doing that with the Queen Victoria Hall up until last year, when they had a loss of, 2 years ago they had a loss of I think £900 on the year. We charged them a £15,000 management fee, then we gave them a grant of £15,900 to balance their books. So I said, why don't we charge a nominal £1 management charge to make clear that we reserve the right to charge one if we wish for our services as trustees, but we won't, we'll charge £1 nominal, and it's silly to give them 15,000 with the one hand in a grant and take it away with the other hand as a management charge. It's just bumping the numbers up, and it was just escalating the numbers in our accounts. Things come back to more sensible numbers if we do away with all of that.
But we're talking about how many organisations? Chat, Volunteer Action, the preschool and the Joan Strong
And the museum.
and the museum.
And the,
So it should be easy enough to look at those 5 organisations and
Yeah.
come up with the figures.
Yeah.
obviously.
They're all the same.
Yeah.
They're all
Yes.
Scouts.
Yeah.
Okay.
And going
So-
back to the charitable organisation in terms of the Scouts and the Browns
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the Guides,
Yeah.
their charity is their whole organisation.
Yeah.
They don't have separate charitable status.
There's also
It's the
mine.
one-
So by the time we have the next meeting, can we get figures of what they actually cost us?
Mine's
Yeah, we
a
need to pull that
building,
together, we need to do a
they
homework.
rent.
What rents we, what grants we give them, what they cost us?
Yeah,
Yeah, we just need the breakdown of grants and rents.
the full amount of what
I mean,
comes in
you-
and out of
Yeah,
each.
Yeah.
and the cost side as well,
Yeah.
what area, what square footage they're getting.
And so we'll revisit it again at that point.
Yeah. And if we circulate that beforehand, we can come prepared, can't we, next
Yeah.
time?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to do. I'd hope to do that this time,
No,
but
that's fine.
pressure of neighbourhood plan plus this library business, NCC's virtual collapse and everything else, I've been kind of busy.
So
Okay.
can I go back to the original £300?
Yes, we still need
Do
that.
that,
Yes.
aren't we?
Yes, yes.
And we've
Yeah.
proposed and seconded that.
Yes,
haven't
we
we?
have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's done and sorted.
Yeah.
And then next time we'll have all the details of everything
Yeah.
else. That's fine. Okay, that's
And that will
fine.
include things like the various societies that make up the Joan Strong Centre lease as well.
Yeah.
We need all their details, Hanneke, to take to this consultant so that we can try and get them VAT exemption, either jointly or severally or
Yeah, I've
however.
got them on the list.
So we need to go for all of them and then get this guy to have a good look, and he'll either come back with a yes or no for
Do you want
each
to
one.
include the museum as well?
Yes.
Include the museum, because they're in the same situation. That's one where they are making a loss, and we're supporting a loss at the moment, and perhaps we should not be supporting such a big loss, and we need to perhaps help them through marketing to do more to help themselves, bring more money in.
You've said this one already, can we just stick to the agenda, please?
Yeah, well, it is, I am on the agenda, yeah.
Right.
Okay. Can we move on?
Yeah, I think so.
To approve a spend of 1,680 to
No,
sort
so what
out.
about the degree in the new
Oh,
lease?
sorry, agree a new lease. Yeah, right,
It's
thank
fairly
you.
straightforward. Robert Neal, who already leases the workshop, would like to renew for a further 3 years. Currently, he's been paying on the old rates, which were 3,000 a year, and obviously Barry's redid everything at £250 a month, so it's roughly the same. So he just wants to renew for a further 3 years, and
Right.
the lease will be exactly the same as the other 2 workshops. It will go through Seaton's as opposed to Hunt and Coombs, so they will be in line with every other lease that's gone into that building.
Right.
And the only difference is that it will have that exemption where at the moment the old style lease under the Tenants Act, it automatically rolled forward. That's exempt in these leases, they won't have that option.
So this will be a lease to 2020.
Yes.
And I notice we're charging £275 a month to Hardek Grooming. Why don't we
Because
charge?
it's a bigger unit,
Okay.
so the middle one's bigger. So the other, either side pay 250 and she pays 275 because of the size.
Everybody happy?
Yeah.
Next item, to approve a spend of 1,680 sorting out the heating at the courthouse.
There is only one estimate.
Yes.
Why is there only one estimate? Because
Good
normally
question.
we have to have 2 or 3.
At the moment, it's just from the company who we have a contract with for the year, who've been
Right.
looking after the boiler anyway.
Okay.
What's happened is when we were all in the building, it didn't matter so much that one room was freezing cold and another room was hot because it was a old building.
Yeah, yeah.
Now you've got all these tenants, you've got some who are baking, who've got the windows open, you've got some who are freezing, who bring in extra heaters. And when you look at the heating system, half of those radiators don't have valves on, so people can't adjust the heat in their own offices.
Oh,
So
right.
some of them are pumping out heat constantly, like in the corridors,
With the
you
windows
nearly
wide
die because it's so hot. And you go in poor Justin's office in QI and he's got 2 extra heaters because his radiator doesn't work at all.
Oh, just kidding.
But Hanneke, this contract's running out this year for these people.
Yeah.
We don't have to use them, do we?
You don't have to, this is just an idea of what it was going to cost to
Okay.
get all that heating looked at.
But we should get some more.
Well,
Yeah,
I just
we should
think
do that.
at least one other.
Well, we have
I
to
mean,
get 3.
Yeah, 3 quotes.
I mean, there's
If we
what?
can,
Well, there's
sometimes you can't
Corby
get them.
in Ketting, isn't there? CORVE. There's one in.
Oh, there's loads of
Yeah,
heating people.
It's just a matter of
Sometimes people don't want those messy
No,
sort
no,
of contracts.
Well, I just wanted to flag up that there is this issue
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's roughly
And that
going to
this is
cost
a-
about this
yeah,
to sort
excellent.
it out.
Yeah, okay.
So if we can
Well, we have to do it, don't we?
estimates-
We do need
We-
quotes.
we
It's a
haven't-
shame because by the time we have our next estates meeting, end of January, we'll be well on through winter, won't we? We'll still have February,
Well, they're all
March
okay
cold,
at the
but
moment.
Could we make an approximate, you know, spending up to or whatever?
Well, we've still got to get to quotes in there, haven't we? So we
No, we've still
can't,
got to get the
can't
quotes
approve
in,
the
yeah.
quotes until the next meeting.
We can if we say we can spend up to a certain amount.
Oh, I see, okay. All right.
That's just a thought.
So if we said that we won't spend any more than £1,680,
Yeah, you can.
You
You
can
can say
do that.
spend up to that figure.
yeah, and then obviously, hopefully, somebody
Because then
comes
you
in
get
better
on with it
value.
with the win. Yeah, somebody
yeah.
comes in with a better value, then you win it.
1680.
Hanneke, it does say this quotation is subject to the terms and conditions printed over leaf. What are the terms and conditions and will they leave us open to more expenditure?
I normally give you all the small print, but I didn't on that one. Sorry.
So are we proposing then that we'll spend up to 1,680, but if Hanneke can do better, then
Well, I think so,
get
don't
three quotes,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Give
low,
legal
and the
intel
lowest
and-
that seems capable
yeah,
yeah,
will
yeah.
take the job.
yep.
Okay.
Everybody.
That's
Yeah.
£1,680 plus VAT.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just mentioned the VAT.
Yeah, and even if that is still inside.
So that's
the
a
limit
proposal.
for
Propose,
estates.
please, Peter.
I propose it.
Thank you.
All in favour?
Jerry.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
whatever.
And I think we're in the same position with the next item,
I
aren't we?
agree, I think again we've got to have, you know, I mean, I think.
I thought that's quite expensive actually,
2 or
294.
3.
Anyway,
We made a provision of 2.5, didn't we? So it's over what we made provision of in the budgets for the year.
And this one doesn't actually say if it's plus VAT or including VAT.
It's not. He's not VAT registered.
He's not VAT registered.
Ah,
But I thought the idea of the timber cladding, because I looked at plastic and it's incredibly expensive, and this will go grey over time. It will match the roof that's there already.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean,
but I still think we need 2 more quotes.
Okay.
Yeah,
What, for the same system
Mm.
of cladding?
compatible, yeah.
okay.
Do we want a proposal?
Are we going to agree 2,950 as the upper limit?
Until we've,
We should, yeah, so we, on this one.
That's
I
above our
think
limit, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
So we've got a full council.
Yeah, we have.
So we
That one
can't,
anyway.
we can't
No.
sort of recommend this at the moment, can we?
No,
We'll
okay.
Get that
Full
on,
council.
get it on agenda for next week.
So I could try and
Is
get
it next
2 more
week?
quotes.
Well, we've got the neighbourhood plan one next week where full council is at.
Ah,
Oh, no,
right.
no,
I don't-
I could
that's
do it
not-
for the
Yeah.
following one. Well, I won't be able to get it
Next
for
week,
next
3
week,
quotes
but
next week.
the actual full council meeting in December.
Yeah.
I could get 2
So
more quotes.
19th of December, yeah.
Yeah, so we should be able to get 2 more quotes. You
Okay.
have 3 to
Okay,
consider at that
good,
meeting.
thank you.
Okay, yeah, if you can
Good,
do it,
yeah.
that's better if you can do it for that
Yeah, I
one.
can't do it for next week.
Right,
Bit busy. with
I'd rather
Christmas.
not do it on the neighbourhood plan one.
No.
Yeah.
please
Can't
do
anyway,
it
can you?
next
It's not
week.
narrow at that.
Yeah, but it is a full council meeting.
Oh, I see.
It's an emergency.
Yeah.
We got one item on the agenda that is an emergency already.
Oh, have you? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right, next item on the agenda, to agree estate budget items of Finance and General Purposes Committee.
Because it says in your terms of reference that by October,
Yes.
you will have provided any big spends to Finance and General Purposes Committee, and as we missed October's meeting, we need to look at it.
There's some items we need, like Snipe Meadow quotes.
But that's coming out of section 106 money.
Yeah, so we
So
still
you don't
need them.
It's not,
budget
it's
for
not
Okay.
the budget.
It's not
Okay.
estates, but it's
Alright.
coming out of budget, but it's not out of estates part of
No.
budget. So, it's both right and wrong, if you like. Are there any, we started looking, we were doing courthouse interior one year, exterior the next. Which was this year, we were then moving on to another building in our rolling programme of maintaining all our buildings.
Well, I've got one for QVH now, thanks to Hanukkah,
Yeah,
for the internally, but only one. But at least we can budget from it.
yeah, but that's in this year, you're trying to get that in the current year,
No, this coming year,
in the coming year,
if that's appropriate,
yeah,
if we feel it will need doing.
yeah.
The only problem there is I don't know if we want to go with that colour scheme next time we decorate. So it's very sort of 80s or 90s, I think.
Oh, you mean the purples?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean, obviously they've got to be changed.
Well, that means that'll have to be changed as well then. So,
There's only one person I know that likes purple, and she resigned from the council.
but you're wearing a purple jumper, don't
I don't know, but my wife bought
and it
it.
almost
I have no
it
choice.
does match. It's the same.
Yeah,
Are you
no,
happy with that?
that's not purple, that's lilac. It's okay.
Okay. Anybody got any ideas of what we should be looking at?
Well, to be honest, I mean, really, I mean, if you're looking at sort of an area where the public like it and sort of think of two things. You've got to go fairly light. You've got to put some sort of feature in whichever room you do.
Are
And
we
you've got to
still on
update it.
decorating?
Yeah.
No,
We'd moved on from that, we were on a project that needs
I'm
doing.
sorry, I thought that
No,
was...
no,
No,
that's-
no, we're on the next.
we're on the budget items.
Well,
What do we need to budget
isn't it,
for?
there?
I don't know. Do we really need to do this next year? I don't know if we do. It's not that bad, but
It's not
It's not that bad.
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
I mean, we did the whole walk round, didn't we? Not
Yeah.
that long ago. There wasn't the purpose of that to decide what the
Yeah,
priority
Yeah.
was.
absolutely.
No, I don't think
Got
so.
that to finish as well, yeah.
We've got to do the
Mine was
outside.
going otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to do the outside.
You've got the rest of that tour to do as well, don't forget.
The one
Okay.
with Jerry here, why go and look at these things and say they're all right, and then 2 minutes later change your mind?
What other items can?
But I think that if there's odd bits on the building that need doing,
Well, we've
Yes.
got the painting
Well,
on
then
the
we-
outside,
yeah.
haven't we?
Well, the painting of the
the interior.
bits on the outside. Yes.
Yeah, and some of the interior.
We've got the wooden gates at Courthouse,
Yes.
before they fall down, the ones facing Mill Road.
yeah, they've
Yeah.
got to be amended, because they're
Yeah.
not safe.
Yeah, you can nearly walk through them, let alone.
Now you're going to get this surveyed. Oh, Mike asked me what's happening about that, by the way, about the drone survey. Have you contacted him?
Yeah, told him to go ahead, we agreed it,
Okay, when did you last speak to him?
the day after when it was agreed. Full council.
Oh, I
rang
think
in
he-
the
I
next
think he-
day,
I think
and
he's
he
a-
said,
I
"I'll
think
do
he's
it
a
when
bit
it's
confused.
nice weather."
I think
And
he's a
went,
bit
"Yes,
confused.
go
Give him a
ahead."
call, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. No, I said he could go
So
ahead.
we may need to include an item in budget for roof, mightn't we, once we've seen what the condition there.
Well, we have got a major roof repair at the courthouse.
I know, but that's in the budget already, isn't it?
Yeah. So you need, yeah, but that would tell us if we get any more roofs that have got a problem. You're right. But yes, I did say to him, I was hoping he was going to do it in the last few days because it's been beautiful.
Any other major expenditure on estates?
Well,
We need to
depending,
budget
see, I mean, obviously, one of the things that's, that we don't know about yet is if, in estates, we are eventually going to be taking over
The
all
library.
things from the library and the road and the bottom and the road.
Well, we
patrol.
can't, we can't budget for the library.
No,
at the
but what I'm
moment, so-
saying is, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in that.
We know we
next
don't
12
know.
We
months.
don't know what's going
So what we're saying is,
Well,
we'll just
okay,
go-
what,
we're gonna
of
guess
what we do know,
Yes.
Because you are not.
can we,
I am, yes, yeah, I tend to.
We do need
This
to do
reminds us
something
it's
about the
recorded.
tarmac here.
Well, yeah, it's true, so I don't
Okay.
mind.
It's not.
And in the drill hall car park, we've got potholes.
yeah, there are potholes in the drill hall car park
And here.
and here.
And
Yeah.
And
Yes,
What about the
yes,
long-term
around
car
here.
park?
Yeah.
The long-term car park's all right, isn't it?
That's okay.
No, I can't remember. When we walked round, didn't we say we needed to do a bit of work? Wasn't there a fence and there was a bit hole in it? Or was that someone else's problem? I can't remember now. It's so long ago. I
Well,
can't
the
remember what we said.
hedges were cut in the
Yeah.
long stay.
Within the lines were all right there, weren't they? It was just
Yes.
a drill hole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you drill hole, got a very
What about
hot hole.
internally in the Jones
Oh, yes,
Strong
true.
Centre?
Didn't we want to do something about white lining in the
The drill hall?
drill hall, not the drill hall, in the St Others Lane car park, because of those two gates or doorways that open up from next door into our car park.
Well, that's in here, £595.
No, that's the drill hall car park, and I've said you need to think about the other two car parks as well.
Ah, sorry, my apologies.
Because we've got a lease
yeah.
on the long stay,
Yeah, yeah,
and that's
yeah.
really faded,
Yeah,
and the co-op's really faded as well.
right.
And the co-ops are responsibility as well, is it?
So we better include those then.
The co-op one, the St Others Lane one is ours. Yeah, that's our property.
Right. So if we say 595 for the drill hall, the long stay car park is what, double that size?
Yeah, it depends on the amount. of
Well, we'll
space.
just get quotes.
Yeah, I'm just,
Yeah.
we need to put some sort of
Yeah.
budget in, don't we?
Well, not at this stage until we've got the quotes. We've
Oh,
got to
okay.
make sure, I believe,
But they're the things
we've got to look at.
consider, yeah.
Yeah.
You want to put them in next year's budget, is what Peter is saying, I think. They've got to go in the budget next year.
So we need them for the January meeting.
Yeah.
What internally in Jones Strong? What's the inside of that like?
No, it's what Roy said, they keep it, they've got
That's their
full
lease.
internal.
Oh, right,
you
okay.
read your carrying lease.
Yes, sorry, I beg your pardon, yeah,
Amazon.
yeah.
I'll tell you.
Because I'm sitting here thinking, I'm so pleased that Roy likes the lease at Jones Strong, because I'm the one that negotiated it.
Yeah, no.
In that case, let's tear it up and start
Comparing
again.
internally.
Yeah,
All
okay,
those
It's just
years
here
ago.
that we have to, we're responsible.
yeah.
The next estates meeting, I think, comes after the official date by which we've got to get our preset
That's
figures
fine.
in, Malcolm.
Does it?
I think so, because we're going to be the end of January with our next meeting, unless we arrange one in December.
We're running out of days in
We're
December.
running out of
Excuse me,
days.
Roy, didn't we not say that we might not be able to do a precept by the end of January because of the various situations we discussed?
I've said that
Well,
a couple of
that's
times at meetings,
full
to
meeting.
forewarn ENC
Yeah,
that we might not be able to.
because I mean, obviously, again, it's what we don't know at the moment, isn't it?
We can put a budget item in for the lining of the car parks now, if you want to,
Well, it's,
or an outside budget, Nate.
yeah,
That
well,
we can budget for
Yeah.
it, see, it's.
We
things
haven't
like
discussed it
ownership
yet,
of
but at the
land.
clerks' meeting at ENC, I believe they were told by ENC that they could be a tiny bit late, but I mean, that's going to be sort of early Feb, I think. Emma's got the exact date by which they need to be submitted. But there's a lot of work to do before you get to that stage, in-house, before we go to ENC with those figures. So I think that
So when would we need these?
that estates meeting end of January is leaving it very late, I think.
Okay,
well,
So-
can we put a figure in then? Let's say, I don't know, £3,000.
for the two car parks,
Well, for the three car parks, the
three
co-op,
cars.
the drill hall, and St Others Lane.
You've
Oh,
got,
sorry, there's four car parks, isn't it?
well, you've got the drill hall in here, we can
Yeah.
agree drill hall.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Get that
So,
one out of the way, it's the others.
If we say £3 for the others, plus
which is
the
above
fine.
our budget, so we'd have to go to.
Well, we'll have to go to, yeah, but we can do that in the next
No,
general
no,
meeting.
we're only putting it in the budget, sorry, it's not, we're not
It's not
asking for that
spending
money.
it.
No, we
We're
do
not spending it, we're just agreeing it in, but no, that's perfectly all right, sorry, losing.
Okay, well, can we put £3,000 in the budget?
I think so, don't you?
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we need a proposal or not?
No, it's
No.
in the budget.
Okay.
What about the potholes? And I'm talking about the ones here and the ones in the drill hole.
This part here,
Yeah.
I've no idea what
I've
that
no
will cost.
idea what potholes cost and who's
Should we
going to
put a,
do.
2,000.
shall we put 2,000 in? Because we've got that one in the drill hole one as well, which is massive.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
That's a really dangerous one, that is.
Yeah, 2,000.
Okay, 2,000.
Bloody hell,
2.5.
£1,000 a pothole, that's...
Well, all I'm saying is by the time you've got people out here to do it, you know what they're like.
No, I know, it just seems shocking to me. This is
But
so
we're talking
expensive.
about resurfacing out here, part of it, aren't we? Within that, is that
I
correct?
don't know why, when they tarmac this, that they stopped before they got to the end of the property boundary.
No,
Because
I
now
don't
that's
know.
all deteriorated.
Probably ran out of tarmac.
So we're £2,000.
Actually, number 4 are having his drive tarmacked on Thursday. Where are we now? Wednesday?
Yeah,
Who is?
tomorrow.
Tuesday.
No, it is
That
Tuesday.
number 4 in my road.
Oh,
So I
can we
nip
have
out
any
with a
extra
bucket and
bits?
see if I can.
Yeah, can we have some extra tarmac?
Yeah, let's go and ask him.
Okay, any other items that we want to include at this stage in the finance and general, in the budget?
For the moment, we've got wooden gates. I don't know what they're going to be.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to go to get those repaired. No idea.
That's
Any
going to be cold,
result?
isn't it?
I think they looked at it before and they couldn't do it because they're
They
too
can't
big.
do it.
I know.
They're
It's
massive.
massive, so you've literally got to take them off, take them away, and rebuild them. It's not an easy job.
No, that's going to be expensive.
That's going to be a couple of thousand too then.
Easily, I would have thought easily £2,000 if that's the situation.
£2,000 for gates.
Your roof, I don't know till we get the drain thing.
Well, can you leave that to,
Next year.
Well, you know that you got courthouse roof, and I'm hoping that's the only bit of the courthouse roof.
well, we can't put a budget item at this stage, can we, unless we need to see there's a problem there.
No, that's true.
How can we amend the budget outside this committee? Can we do it?
Well, you're just putting
Figures.
your budget items for
Yeah.
finance to then go into the budget, which then
Finance.
goes to full council. So it's got to
Okay.
a long way down
Finance
the
will
line.
review it again, we'll either
Yeah,
Okay, well,
add some more in or take some
Yeah.
out.
All right.
yeah, it'll be
Depending
Okay.
how the
yeah.
numbers are looking, and then it'll go to full council and they might decide to
Yeah,
add
not
things in or take
spend.
things out,
And
so.
then one other question, because I mean obviously it's getting late and I know people don't want to sort of
Yeah.
sit around here all night. With regard to the extension of the kitchen and the changing rooms, is that already in the budget or have we got a budget for it? Because that's part of the estates bill, isn't it?
This is going to be a work alone, isn't it? As with the
Yeah.
maintenance
Public
workshop.
Works, loan board loan, yeah.
So we don't
Yeah,
have to
to
budget
budget
it,
for
that's
them,
fine.
do you?
I just
Well,
wanted
we
to
need to
double
put a
check.
figure in the budget for the loan repayment.
Yeah, well, the maintenance workshop's different because you're swapping one for the other, aren't
It's
you?
already shown in there as rent.
Yes,
so
I know, so-
that
So
it is
£7.5
only
grand
this
rent will just
extension
become
that you
£7.5
need to
grand per annum
Consider.
repayment.
Yeah, so
This
that
one-
stays the same.
This one will be an extra every year to put in,
Yeah.
so we're going to have to build that in every year, and then we've got that money to pay back.
you better do it at a higher interest rate too.
How much we're paying at the moment? How much is the totals in?
Well, when we get to
Just
the
roughly.
agenda item, I've worked
Yes, you're
out
ahead of the agenda.
what your workshop costs and what your loan's going to cost.
Yep.
Okay,
So I've done it.
all right, we'll put that in the budget then.
What is the loan cost?
Well, wait till we get there. Let's go.
Can we move on?
I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead.
Right, well, we'll go to the next item, which is to receive an update on the maintenance workshop.
Now you can
Yeah,
have it.
there you go. Right, some of these costs are hard and I've had to sort of estimate on previous quotes because trying to get anyone to give you a price for a gas connection without an architect's plan is impossible.
Yep.
So today I got a quote in for the trench, which we can add in,
Yep.
which is going to be about £500. So
Right.
if you add up what we've got so far, I made it about 45,000. So if you add on 5 for contingency, because I reckon your gas connection is going to be at least 3,000.
Right.
From talking to them.
Yeah.
And the kitchen, I've based that on the quote for the kitchenette in the courthouse, which is
Right.
basically what you need, I think. But I've no idea what toilets cost, so I've just guessed that at the moment.
£1,000, I thought.
Yeah, they're not
Yeah.
that expensive. are they?
So if you do add that up and you put it in your public works line and what's it and thingy,
In the calculation, yeah.
That's really,
you get that. And I'd
Technical,
say
that
the less
figure,
the time you
but
pay
isn't
it, the
it?
better.
The quicker we pay back, the better. But,
And I've done one for 45,000 as well.
right, so these are over all the different years. This is the only copy of it.
Yeah, because I did it
hang
late.
on.
so-
Are we saying that whole building's going to cost 45,000?
That's what we estimated, yeah.
I think it's extremely cheap.
I think it does, but
It's
the
just-
steel,
it's
the
just-
building
yeah.
itself is costing,
It's only a shed, isn't it?
It's only-
The shed itself is 24 grand, you've supposed.
Yeah, but then it's got to be insulated.
Well, I'm assuming that's in the cost.
that was part of the quote.
Yeah.
Really? 24,000 was insulation?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
The biggest cost that you haven't got is the concrete pads, and that is really hard because no one seems to be able to agree what depth it needs to be.
Have you put an
What have you
estimate in
allowed
for
for?
that? What have you allowed for it?
I haven't put anything in at the moment because I've got
So
no
that could be
idea.
another 5,000, 10,000
That's
pounds,
what I'm
isn't it?
saying, perhaps better to estimate 50,000.
I'd go 60.
I'll tell you what, this half-yearly costs in here, I mean, apart from, if you just do it over 5 years, it's 5,000, half-yearly cost is 5,214, which means you're paying over 10.5 grand a year, or close on 10.5 grand a year. But if you start looking at sort of 20 years payback, it's about £1,500–1,600 for half a year, it's about 3,000, that's half per year, what we're currently paying to rent a building.
So that's
And
50,
we're getting a bigger building.
that's 50,000, based on 50,000.
Well, I would say, I
That's,
think we've
that's
got
based on 50,000 advance,
I
yeah,
think
capital
we've
sum
got
of
60.
50 grand.
I really do think you want, because that concrete base is going to be at least 1 foot 6 down.
Past 6 grand anyway.
Well, if we do 60,000 as a budget item for it, but we're
It's-
all,
Why are we
All
pulling,
we-
why are we pulling numbers out of the air? The first thing we've got to do
Exactly.
is get the you said you needed an architect's drawing, didn't you? The first thing you have to do is get it properly quoted for the full scope.
but as far as the budget's concerned, if we use last year's rent, that should cover it. We just extend the loan. Is that what you're
Well,
saying?
that's what that's
Yeah.
how I worked it out, was say, if we repay 7.5 grand a year, we get away with paying it back in something like 6 or 7 years or something like that.
So we keep the rental payment as the payment, the
Yes.
repayment.
We
For
can
the,
do
for
it.
the, for the
We can pay the
purposes
rest
of the budget.
over a longer time, and we got some towards the cost of the kitchen and changing room here at Fletton. You know, we've got some, that
okay.
Public Works loan board,
But
we were
as far as-
estimating 60k there for a start. It's going to be a bit more than that now, I think, we're kicking it out, but only about 70.
But what Jerry's suggesting
Is
is
that we
that
get an
you have
architect's
an
drawing.
outlay of say 3.5 for your whoever
Yeah.
gets the tender.
Yeah.
So you budget that now as
Yes.
a cost,
Yes,
and that would give you much more accurate.
you will get, yes. I think
So
we
that
should.
would be something
Yeah.
that you'd have to spend initially.
Yeah, well, I think
To get
well,
that.
that's what
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
is
we've
what
got
we
to
want
do
to do, isn't it?
We've got to do
Yeah,
that.
I know.
So we're suggesting a budget item of 3,500 plus 7,000 a year to further service the loan. So we've got 2 items in the budget. Is that correct?
Yeah, because you're going to have to spend your 3.5 or whatever your architect's quote is in order to get your plans.
Will
so
that
you
come?
can
Will that
get
come
this
back?
accurate-
Would
That's
that
in
come back?
this year.
To,
I'd like to do that this year. I'd like to get that architect and get him started this year. Get this thing built as soon as we can.
so then
I'd like get
we'll
the
have to go to full council, won't we, to spend that money?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the
That's
next-
December, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not a problem, but I think we need to get this architect cracking on with it, and then we need to get accurate figures so that we can then work out what the loan board loan is.
We've got an architect for this.
No, because you've still got to go out to tender.
Well, let's crack on, get out to tender and do it. Yeah, let's
Right.
do that.
Sorted then.
So by the time we have the next full council meeting, can we have tender quotes for the architect, please?
Yeah.
Not that you're not doing very much, Hanika.
No, I wasn't going to say anything, but yeah.
So what are you going to do tomorrow afternoon, Annie, when you've done all this?
Lie down in the dark room. I'm happy to do it, but I didn't, to be honest, last time we went out for tender for an architect, it caused a war, so I'm trying to be very careful. I will approach all 3 architects again,
Yeah.
but I need to know exactly what we're asking for.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the thing, it's
Yeah.
the specification, that's the hard bit.
yeah, yeah. Well, we've got the details of our building that we want.
Yeah.
We've got the ideal building we want, we know what that will cost, we know
it
its
stands on a
dimensions.
concrete pad.
We know what's got to go in terms of a pad, we know what services and things have got to go into it, we know what we've got to fit it out with. We should know all the bits, and architects should be able to pull that all together, I would have thought.
Okay,
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you don't, I mean, obviously, because it's,
Okay.
it was down there, you only need sort of like a small office, stroke tea room, and a toilet.
can we move on, please?
yep.
To agree how to gather public support for a loan application for Clayton House extension. Why, I asked you why you put this item in there.
Emma asked me to put it on,
What public support do we need? We can just do it, can't we?
We don't need it.
but it says on here, if you want to apply for a public loan,
Yeah.
you have to have public support and you have to have evidence if you have to put your precept up. So for the
Well,
maintenance
we're not having to
workshop,
put,
you
we're not,
don't...
we're not having to put a precept up, are we? We can do it within the current precept.
Okay, I don't know, Emma asked me to put it on and asked me to send you this, so I've done that.
We're not going to have to put the precept up for the,
Not for the workshop, no,
Workshop.
so you wouldn't need to worry, but you might for your extension. You're looking at 100,000 on a loan.
we need to do that for, if we ended up with the library building, I don't think we need to do it for this, because I think we can do it out of,
Current funds.
yeah.
Right, hang on, you just said it's about 100,000.
I think your estimate that your architect gave you 60,000 for your extension for your kitchen, I don't think that's enough.
No,
if you
no.
look at
No,
it.
I
You
don't,
need to look at about 100,000.
Okay.
I don't think we need to go that way, but
Well, that's me being overestimated
Yeah.
then. But
But-
I'm just been asked
yeah.
to say, if you are going to do that, how are you going to justify public support for that extension? You don't need to worry about the workshop, because that's
Yeah, that's a lot.
covered.
Well, then this is
itself.
something we should have tackled a long, long while ago. Why have we only now had this thrown at us now?
Can I also ask, I thought, again, excuse my ignorance, we're not going for a public works loan for the extension then?
Yeah, but that's why you need the evidence of public support,
Yeah.
according to Emma.
According to this, you do.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so
I didn't
let's,
know you
let's,
had to, I've never applied for
Well,
public works.
In the insurance meeting this morning, the first I heard of it was that we're not doing this till the spring.
Well, no, I did say that at the last meeting. The architect said the building regs have gone in,
Yeah,
but they would be approved by end of January, so we
Yeah.
could start building as
Right.
soon as the weather got
well, in
better.
that case, let's put it in the next
That's-
article.
that's when we should be, that's when we
Which
should
is
be doing it.
really-
But what's involved in this public support? Have we got to have a referendum or have we got to have...
No, I don't know. I presume that it's evidence from users of the cafe and ballet that they need those facilities. That's the only way.
Well, they'll
way I
say yes,
read
of
it.
course, but anybody else in the town may say no, we don't spend the money on that.
In that case, let's get a letter
Well,
from the ballet
then-
school
Then
and
don't worry about
from
it.
the hub.
Agree how to gather
Try
public
without
support.
and see. I mean, we've only got to say something like our
I was gonna
present
say,
facilities are
it's
not
been
quite
in the
adequate for the
Oracle,
number of
hasn't it?
users.
It's been in the Oracle and no one jumped up and down.
We just need a letter from the ballet school saying that they need the changing rooms, that's public support.
Yeah.
And from the hub staff saying they need the extra space for the kitchen, that's public support. So that's, isn't it? Surely that's all
Well,
we need.
they're not
That's
public,
back.
are they?
We also
They're
need
staff, they're not
Bigger
public.
kitchen if we're going to do these meals for corporate stuff,
Yeah.
to do that properly.
Yeah.
I would have thought we justified all this ages ago, I thought. I
That's
thought
what I
all this
thought,
had been...
But if we can do it without putting the precept up, it doesn't matter, does it?
Well, we're not, it's not, it means we're going to find about £12,000 a year from somewhere, aren't you?
We're going to find... Sorry.
About £12,000 a year from somewhere,
Yeah.
because 100 grand is going to cost you about 12,000 a year to fund it. So that's you're going to have to find another £12,000 in our budget to pay for the that loan.
So we should be able to manage, I would think.
Depending how many years you run it over, where are those figures for the other one?
They're
Where have they
there.
got to?
But I think,
We double that 50,000 one. I don't think it's going to be as much as 100,000.
no, but I think you're right, I mean, we've got to,
I
we've got
don't
to
know
balance
numbers, I
it.
think it's quite dark that, isn't it?
I know, it's only sort of pie in the sky, really.
Pay it.
Yeah.
But even if it is 100,000,
That's
you
a
know,
£50,000.
double the 50,000 up. Look at the longer year periods there. And
Well, if you have 20 years, apparently according to this,
yeah,
it's 3,600 to borrow £100,000.
yeah,
Because
That's
a fixed-
3,664.
cheap government
yeah.
money.
Yeah.
That's a half year price, is it, or a year price?
Yeah, I was told
Half
it. Yeah, but no,
Oh,
one, oh, sorry, yeah, 7,200,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, so, got a budget for another £7,500.
But I think maybe we ought to put an article in the Oracle about what we're doing. I don't think it'll do any harm, would it?
No, we can do
We have
it.
put them in previously.
That's been in.
Yeah.
Has
We
it?
can do. All I'm saying is
Well, maybe do an update on the progress.
Yeah.
we'll crack on with it
Good idea.
because
Okay. Right, that's it, that's done, sorted.
Okay,
Use the word to improve the facilities or something.
and you can get a letter from the ballet school or Zumba or something, or whoever.
Right,
All right, can we move on then, please? To accept a quote from SSE for £501.94 to upgrade the meter at QVH to resolve the heating issues. This is the only quote we've got again, I suppose.
Proposed,
Oh, SSE,
It's
yeah.
proposed.
good.
All those in favour? Right, that's fast.
Oh, we talked about that.
Okay, to agree to repaint the white lines at Drill Hall car park at a cost of
We've just done
£595.
mine.
Would you like to propose that one?
Yeah, I'll press on.
Okay.
seconded. Yeah, and
All those in favour?
Yeah.
Please note that in view of the special and or confidential nature of the business about to be transacted, it is advisable that in the public interest of the public be temporarily excluded and they are instructed to withdraw. Standing Order 3C.
you need to propose and second it for that.
I do.
Can someone propose it, please?
Propose.
Seconded.
Yeah.
All those in favour? Against? What a surprise.